Hello and welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake Lamore, and today's episode we are diving back into the sports world, and in particular, wrestling. We're going to talk to Erik Olson, who you may not recognize the name because he's gone by several other names in his wrestling career. But by the time this episode is released, Erik will have done his final match, wrestling match on the ring. I'm sure he'll still be behind the ring, but he won't be on the ring any longer. But anyway, welcome Erik Olson to the podcast.
Thank you. This is cool. Not very often I get to do this kind of stuff because I'm more behind the stuff as far as besides Facebook and social media. We have a lot of kids that like to do this stuff in the younger generation. A couple of them have been on other podcasts over the past couple of years, which is cool to hear the younger talent and the older talent too get on and tell their stories and stuff. So this is interesting for me and a first time thing.
Well, and I want to start off too by saying thank you for all your months of support for being a Kankakee Podcast patron as well.
Yep.
Because that really helped get us a footing to keep going. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I wish I had all the money in the world to support people. It's something that it's hard to do when you have very little to give, but you want to give more.
Well, let me tell you, your contributions went a long way.
Cool.
So
good.
Thank you for that. Erik's been a longtime patron of the podcast, and also, I guess I like to always start at the beginning. For when I'm having people on the show, as you know, where does life begin for Erik Olson?
All the way back, almost
all the way back.
Be 50 years, July 17th. So,
we're recording this on July 14th. So happy birthday!
The big 5-0. Mentally, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Physically, it's getting worn down a little bit. But
being a wrestler and all that,
and
I'm sure.
I do that, but not as often as people think. It's rough. It's time. I've had a great opportunity to be able to live my dream, like a lot of young kids, or to be anything, astronaut, basketball, football player. To be able to live at what extent I've been able to has been awesome. You always have aspirations to be like, I wanted to be the NFL player of the year or something, or the next superstar on WWE Raw or something like that, but I've been fortunate. So I like to thank a lot of people that have helped me make that possible over the years. Even growing up, I was supported in doing goofy stuff. But my mom, she always she made us costumes when we were little, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever, and she was a really crafty person, still is. We're able to live those kids' fantasies and dreams out and stuff, being young, and it carried over to me in adult life just because I think I'm a kid at heart, and I walk around with Superman shirts on all the time or whatever, Thor, whatever, and just I got Superman shoes and all that stuff. So it's just I'm 50 but still feel like a kid.
Were you born and raised in the area?
Born and raised. Born in Kankakee at St. Mary's. Lived for a short time when we were super young out in the Braidwood, Wilmington area on my grandpa's farm. My dad came back from serving in the service, and he's an Army veteran. We moved into Kankakee area. It's off of 17 West, heading out of town. I can't remember the name of the road. Just past Davidson's West, old restaurant.
Okay, yeah.
We lived down there for a little while in a house. My second brother, I'm the oldest of 3 boys. So imagine that growing up. Moved over in the Limestone area. I built a house, my dad, in 78, I believe, over in Village Green. It's a subdivision out by Oakdale, Village Green area off of Tower Road.
Yep.
And they still live there to this day. And went through the Limestone grade school, Herscher High School, graduated in 92. And pretty much haven't really left the area. I've been on a few short trips, other places, and that's about it.
When did you first get introduced to wrestling then? Where does that come in?
I think it's TV. Back in the early to mid 80s, if you aren't out running around all day and all night, when, you can do that, and things, I wouldn't say were safer, but, not as so crazy as, life is now.
Well, everything is surveillance now, whereas back then there weren't phones everywhere and being uploaded to the internet. So
parents had a big phone list of who to call down the street. My kids down there, they just, and that subdivision was a pretty it's good setup, because at the time it only had one road, and it went around like the curve down at the end of the subdivision, and that was it. Well, eventually they ended up adding a newer street, so it made a big U.
Okay.
And it just, you ran up and down the street and played from morning to night and hung out at other kids' houses. And
so when you weren't doing that, you were watching
TV,
wrestling.
TV.
Do you remember the very first time? Did you happen to turn it on, or was your dad into watching wrestling, or was it one of your friends?
My dad was not into it. It had to have been on TV as far as I remember. Like Saturday mornings used to be like a big thing for wrestling. The old NWA, which eventually turned into WCW, they had a Saturday morning program that came on, and it was like in the studio, which was really neat. It wasn't out in the arenas. Or WWF back then, Superstars was a Saturday show.
And they would show these in the morning?
Mornings, and sometimes like in the afternoon, I believe.
I guess
cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
And I would be watching
Saturday morning wrestling
on Channel 12 and TBS or whatever it was called back then. And I'd have to beat my dad to the TV because he'd want to watch the fishing show.
And you just fall asleep to the fishing show, probably.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to watch wrestling, Dad.
Which was cool. I mean, he wasn't in it, but I think he liked, whatever,
Yeah. But getting that first impression, though.
Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, he was the one that turned it on for you, huh?
Just that in that era, the golden era, larger than life people, characters, larger than life characters. His motto, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, believe in the Hulkamania and all that stuff. It was just like inspiring as a little kid, but like along the lines of a superhero. Everybody on TV was a superhero.
But the difference is, instead of like, that Superman's not real, but Hulk Hogan is.
He's there.
Like, he's a real human being.
And back in that era, and there was still a lot of secrets about the business setup or whatever you want to call it. I don't like the word fake because it's not physically. It's not fake. It's a soap opera on TV in real life,
action
in real life, just like a movie you would watch.
Yes,
same thing, but it's live. It's right there. So yeah, at that time, like, you're so engulfed in the bad guy versus good guy stories. And it's just like, and they a lot of times, a lot of federations back then, there was a lot of smaller territories. The WWF was the big one. That was the main one on TV, syndicated cable. NWA, WCW, Turner Broadcasting started coming on. So, but yeah, he's just like from hundreds of years ago, it's the bad versus good thing. The Romans versus the Lion, or the Gladiators versus, all that. It played in to wrestling. Like they would take stories from the news from back in that era. It was, the Gulf War, not the Gulf War, but the Sheik, Hulk Hogan versus the Sheik. The American versus that, or the Russian, Nikolai Volkov from Russia, just like Rocky, Rocky versus Drago.
Yeah.
And it just, the villains and stuff. You just grew up just like that guy, piece of, you know what I mean? And if those guys with their gimmicks, like their characters, if they could pull that off on a nightly basis, sometimes 4 or 5, 6 times a week at different on shows in the area, they traveled all like a rock star. And it's easy to make people hate you. I've come to find out.
So about what age then did you
that was
get
probably
introduced
about
to Hulk Hogan?
7, 8, or 9 years old. 'Cause I was born
Okay.
in 73. So by the time that rolled around, about 7, 8, 9, 10 year area.
Yeah. Did you ever get to see any matches?
No live events for a long time.
Okay.
Back then, if you had to watch the special pay-per-view, you had to have that box.
Yes.
You had to go to the cable company and all that stuff.
And they were so expensive too.
And my parents were cool. We got to have some get-togethers with our kids or guys from school and stuff down in the tri-level. We had a basement, and it got a little rough sometimes.
That was going to be my next question: is if you started to have your own wrestling amongst friends, your own wrestling matches,
always
where you're
around.
like I'm going to be the Hulk, I'm going to be Hulk Hogan, you're going to be Sheik or
all the
whoever.
time, all the time.
Yeah.
Broke some furniture, and that happens. We would goof around, and back then you'd run around out in the yard and screw around, cops and robbers, play fights and all that stuff. So it just all tied in together. A lot of friends, my brothers were, I wouldn't say wrestling dummies, but I guess we practiced goofing around on mom and dad's big bed and stuff like that. And I think we just broke the bed, or it's like,
Was it at that age where you're like, I really want to be a wrestler like Hulk Hogan, or when did that?
No, it's just I played sports a lot. I was probably pretty average at all sports that I played. I wasn't a superstar by any means. I didn't play football till high school. Back then, there was only the Azraeli Colts back in that era. There wasn't all these little small football leagues for kids, and I think I think I benefited from that maybe because you played backyard football or sandlot football.
And football was, did you ever play did you ever do wrestling in high school?
No, I did in grade school.
Okay.
At that time, the Limestone School District was a lot smaller. So we only wrestled Bonfield, which was in our school district, and Herscher grade school.
Oh, yeah. So you just...
that was it. But once I got into high school, I was after football, I was going to wrestle my freshman year, and had this, the stuff to do it. My mom, and I had some bad grades, and my mom's like, you're not going to, not do it.
Wrestling for you.
But I actually,
and you probably discovered that type of wrestling is a little different than what you were watching on TV.
Oh, big time. And I knew it because in junior high, totally different. And I knew the difference.
Yeah.
And at that time, at that age, you're watching the stuff, you start picking up on things on TV.
So you start to get, 10, 11 years old. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, you see some stuff sometimes. I'm like, okay.
Did he really get hurt by that chair? Like, did that really hurt?
And back then, and now it's still, but there's props and gimmick. They call it gimmicks.
Right.
Gimmicked chair, a gimmicked guitar or something, or a table.
Right, the table or
never been through one of those.
Yeah, or I always think of The Rock and the Big People's elbow, because the elbow didn't really go down on the wrestler.
It depends sometimes. Yeah, it depends on who.
Yeah,
mishaps happen all the time. You can like, oh man, they got that on camera. Edit that out before it airs. Live events. Whatever happens. You just got to go with it. Injuries. People get hurt during the matches and stuff, and there's specific ways to let the people know inside the ring. And now it's apparent that everything. Smart fans or marks marks, or if you see a referee throw up that X sign, somebody's hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right.
Then you really know that their screenplay, so to speak, didn't play out like it should have.
Yes, about getting things to work around that, or there has been unfortunately cases where it's been more serious and like stop.
Once you graduate high school and everything, when did your first opportunity come in to be an amateur wrestler? Then how did that present itself?
As far as getting into the business, it took a while. I think in the fall, the late summer of '99. Okay, there was an organization in the area at the time. It was called the WWA, and it was a professional wrestling organization here in the area. They did shows at the Mantino Diversitech gym. Way back.
Remember that.
Yes.
And maybe you can refresh, because, you did send me kind of a bio of a short snippets of your career and how you started. And I remember reading that first one about the WWA and seeing that they did stuff in Mantino. Because I remember as a kid in the late 90s, did they ever do any matches on Main Street in Mantino? Because I remember specifically going to a wrestling match to watch a wrestling match in downtown Mantino on Main Street.
They might have,
and it was around that time.
It might have been before I was, because I don't remember having one there. But they did other areas and stuff.
I do remember there being some out at Diversitech.
They did, which was cool. That's where I, because I've been a gym rat for most of my life. A couple of the guys that I worked out around were part of that organization. John Thompson was the main one. His gimmick name is the Lunatic, and he looks like it. And because they had a gym, I had a membership at the Mantino gym, which was in the basement of the Diversitech gym.
Okay.
And that's where I met him, and Kelly Henson. He was another guy that wrestled for the WNA and stuff. And, I lifted weights around them and stuff. And I got to know him well enough to went to a couple of the shows and stuff. So, this is cool. Yeah, this is it's one.
You're like, I want in on this.
Yeah.
How do I do that? So you approached him and you're like, hey, how do I get in on this? Right?
Yeah. John, if I can remember correctly, it was, I ended up seeing a flyer one day, back when you went around on foot and advertised and stuff, for a 3-day mini camp for this organization, the WWA. I'm like, and I can't remember how much it was, whatever. It wasn't nothing.
Yeah, $20 or something.
It was like, I could do this. I signed up, whatever, At that time, the practice facility was in Kankakee. I can't remember the name of the old auto parts store. Lane Auto Parts. I'm terrible with street names.
Is that on Washington?
If you turn off a Court Street by the post office and you hang a left, you're headed north. You go past LeBeau Brothers, semi places.
Yep.
Go through that stoplight, and the next block after that, there's some buildings on the left-hand side. So back in the alley, back behind those buildings, there's a big garage-looking type place. That's where that facility was at the time. 'Cause initially, they started in Mantino, Diversitech, one of the old buildings there where they had their ring set up for training. When he moved it there, and that's where I did my 3-day my mini camp, which was really neat. I met a lot of newer guys and stuff. A weird, which was cool and stands out. A Weird Al Yankovic impersonator that did stuff at Disney and stuff was there.
Wow.
This guy, Mike Bonomo, he was the promoter at the time. He has connections, and how he get these odd, just random people coming around and stuff, which is kind of cool.
I didn't know Mike had anything to do with that.
Yeah, he was the promoter of that organization way back.
Okay, and people might recognize his name now being a part of Mia Bella's.
Yes, yep.
So Mia Bella's Pizza. So if you're familiar
him and his
with
wife,
them, yeah.
Yep. So that was his thing back then.
Okay.
And he used to drive around in an old minivan. I can't remember. They had the big WWA
Yeah.
thing on there and stuff. You know who that was when they were driving around town. So
Wow.
yeah. So
Man.
it introduced me to him and some other new green guys, which are new green.
Mm-hmm.
Got to learn some stuff. Just really basics and stuff, and you put together a little videotaped match on your VHS tape, and I actually wrestled the Weird Al Yankovic impersonator.
Do you still have that?
I wish I'm sure I do somewhere because I used to carry that. I'd carry that videotape.
I would
around
love
with
to
me.
watch that.
It was a quick 1 minute.
It'd still be funny.
Really
though.
raw.
Oh yeah,
raw. Yeah.
That would be hilarious to watch, though.
I had bleached hair back then. I was already bleaching my hair before.
Well, that was a trend.
It was a thing
at that time.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I had bleached blonde hair and stuff, and just whatever. And it was cool. And I carried that videotape around with me. Whoever wanted to say, like it was gold. It was a 1 minute, a minute and a half maybe wrestling match with Weird Al Yankovic impersonator.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So then, was it during that camp that they were kind of like, oh, maybe Erik can work with us, or how did you get your first role then?
Back then, because we run a great facility right now. We do the same thing. Southland Championship Wrestling facility we have out in Moments, and word of mouth. We do advertising, video, whatever. Word of mouth is a lot of the key from other guys, friends, family. Back then, when you get students and stuff, you pay like a monthly dues.
Okay. So if
for training.
Okay, so
stuff.
if you were in the association, you're paying so much a month.
Yeah, which I think was like $25,
Sure.
Whatever. And you had you actually signed a contract and stuff to make so many payments, and which was pretty common back then for any federation or training facility. Even the ones that I know, guys from up north that I've been around for years now, Windy City Wrestling up there, it's kind of the same deal. So I was just going there 2 or 3 times a week after work, working out, training to be a wrestler and stuff.
So you were paying then?
Yeah, it's like a gym membership, basically.
Okay. But you weren't actually doing matches yet?
No, not on. I wasn't on a show yet, which was.
But you were trying.
Oh yeah,
okay.
You go in there training, you gotta learn basics on not how to hurt yourself and stuff. And,
sure.
And I was, unfortunately, some stuff was happening early on that, concussions, obviously, whiplash. I broke some cracked ribs like after a week or so. But I was young and dumb.
You were learning,
and I was learning. So I knew it was going to be rough. You signed a waiver,
right? Yeah, you signed.
You read that waiver.
We're not responsible for your injuries. Yeah.
Exactly. That's how it is. And, just kept doing it, and I think I only trained for about a month or so before I was put into a show.
Okay, so what?
It was kind of quick. It was too quick, I believe.
Okay.
Back now that I look back, it was too quick. But I'm from the area. I know friends and family and stuff. They're gonna pay to come watch me. Any promoter promoting anything, sees a dollar sign potential for it, and that's part of the business.
Yes.
So
what was that first show like?
It was.
And what was your name?
Nerve-wracking. That's the funny thing is trying to come up with names that whatever, and you try to. So Mike, I got paired up with a guy that had been in the business a little bit longer to kind of help you out, whatever. And his name was the Candy Man. I can't remember his last name, but his first name was Chad. Really nice guy.
Sounds very intimidating.
Yeah, and he had, the Candy Man, and he had lips on his trunks, whatever, And it's cool. And so we're trying to think of these names, something to go with him and the look or whatever. you just sit around and like you brainstorm, like what is this and that. So my middle name is Edwards, so I got Erik Edward, and I didn't, we couldn't think of any not goofy, but yeah, something different than my name. So as we come up with exotic Erik Edwards.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
One half of the Sugar Daddies was the name of the tag team with the Candyman. So it kind of, we were like maybe a slow poke or some kind of candy or whatever.
Okay. So you were assisting the Candyman.
Well, I was his tag team partner.
Okay. Okay.
He was more like kind of assisting me of learning learning stuff or whatever, and a lot of training beforehand. Back then, which was a good idea to an extent. You would watch other guys that you want to like not copy but emulate their style, how they sell their punches or how they whatever. The closer you can get to working your own personality and amping it up, the better. Instead of trying to be someone you're not, it's easier. It's more organic.
So you were really looking up to the Candyman.
Yeah, Chad was. There was a couple other guys too that came down that were veterans from up in Chicago. Trevor Blanchard. My main guy that I really was down there a lot. It was close. I was a little bit older than him. His name was Brandon Bishop, and he was a younger guy, but he had been in the business for a while. Trained by the guys up in Chicago. Gravitated towards him because he was there a lot, helping us out. When Mike couldn't. There was another guy from the area, Vince Robbins, local guy that he owns a gym in Shorewood now, years later, which he just started wrestling again with us, and then now he's with so many other companies. It's unreal. He took off again like he's a brand new, like a rocket ship.
Yeah, he's ready to go again.
And you know what? He's young. He's younger than me, but when he came back after so many years off, and he was
just ready to get back to work.
Up. He blew up, and he's awesome. He's doing it. He's living his life. Owns a gym, running around wrestling for organizations and having fun.
So, what do you remember? What other details do you remember from that very first match? Then being on the tag team.
I made my own tights, my own clothing back then. Like what I got money for.
Yeah.
My mom was really crafty. Kathy Olson, name dropped Kathy Olson. She owned a crafting business on Broadway way back when we were kids. So she's always crafts, just everything. So I think I got this inspiration from her, like using I bought like I think it was like an off blue purple singlet, wrestling singlet, and I used some of her sparkling paint that's a little glitter in it. So I was splatter painting with a paintbrush my tights singlet or whatever with silver and I believe pink, and it turned out really cool. I like, this looks like whatever, but that's all I had. And I had actually had custom boots made by a company that made a lot of pro wrestling boots for where pros like Mick Foley, Sting, a lot. There's a website. The website is still active, believe it or not. And
okay.
They're about $400. You had to send in your measurements and stuff.
I was thinking those weren't cheap.
No, they weren't. And they didn't come in till that morning of the show.
Oh, man.
So they're stiff leather. And I tried to wear them around the house and break them in. They didn't break in. I had the worst blisters of my life the next day.
That's what I
wore them all day and all night.
Trying to break them in.
During the match, I wore them after the match, after the show.
Yeah, people taking pictures.
Oh, yeah.
And,
a lot of family were there. My grandpa was there. My brothers were heckling because I was a bad guy.
Oh, that's right.
I was a heel.
Yeah.
A heel. I was a bad guy with the Candyman. People hated us because just so they already hated him. So right. I was tag team partner.
Yeah. So did you get a lot of ring time then? Were you?
The first show I wrestled in a singles match with another newer guy, which we were able to practice a lot together in training before we had the match.
So it was all planned out then how it was going to work.
Yes,
so you knew like you weren't going to win or whatever. Well, however that is decided.
I didn't because did I win? I don't even remember now.
But that does get decided beforehand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Most of the time, yes. Stuff does happen during something happens like injury or something like you got to work out with it on the fly. so it doesn't look like something's wrong.
Yeah. So you're almost you're an actor to a certain extent,
It's like a
where
dance.
you have to
Yes.
you have to improvise if the plan that you put in place doesn't exactly go as planned.
And it happens a lot. And
Yeah.
if you're good at it and stuff, like I said, everything's so readily available now with phones and the internet and stuff. If you're good at it and it's like a dance, is basically what it is. And if you have to change that dance step and you can do it without a hiccup or whatever, then everything goes well. It's like it's supposed to. But yeah, it was fun. It was something I didn't think I'd ever be able to do, and I did it, and it was fun. It was a blast. And yeah, it was great. I still have that VHS tape stuff running around
from your first match.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the quality, and it's a camcorder back in the day.
Right. Yeah.
But it's cool. My mom and dad were there. My brothers were heckling me, which was easy for them. Yeah, your whole family yelling and booing at you. And you can hear my mom in the background, "Don't hurt my baby." It's so awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, it was fun. Which is weird because it was the October of '99. That's when that show took place.
Okay.
And this kind of ties in the meeting my wife, which is kind of because I bounced.
Was she there?
No, but she bounced at a couple local. I bounced at a bar here in town in the area. Because I worked at remember the old Equal NutraSweet plant in Mantino? That's where I worked on second shift. So I go out and I ended up bouncing at the Broadway Bottle Club on Broadway. It's called Breakaway now.
Okay.
So it was the only place in town in the area that had a dance floor. So that's where everybody was at. It's Fridays and Saturday nights. So I bounced there, wrestled the show. It was Halloween era time. I kept my outfit on
to go out.
And went to the Broadway Bottle Club in my wrestling gimmick for Halloween. So I had those boots on all day. That's why I ended up with the worst blisters in my life.
Because you were dancing in them and
walking around and goofing around, whatever, drinking, showing everybody my. So the Bottle Club closed at 2:00, but John's Pub, which was where the huddle was for a while, was still open. So some of us went over there. And my wife was bartending there. My future wife was bartending there. And I walk in, this goofy, my white, boots on and stuff. And it's Halloween. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's this lady. We had met a couple of times before, but, whatever. This lady was down at the end of the bar cooing like a dove. And my future wife saying, "Yeah, please, I'm trying to get her out of her. I can't get her out of her." So, whatever. She's cooing like
a bird.
Yeah.
And
Okay, I'll try to get her out of here. So, I got her out the front. Didn't have to physically remove her, but I couldn't even remember what she was saying. She was just out of it. But she was trying to close.
Yeah,
the bar,
and you were trying to help her out by getting this lady.
Yeah, it was just a funny
who had one too many
or whatever she had. I don't know, but she just got her out the front door, and I walked in and locked the door behind me, or my future wife did. But yeah, that's how she kind of seen what I was into. I had just started.
Well, and she saw those purple tights.
I don't know if it was the purple tights that did it. I don't know.
And the sparkly paints.
Oh yeah, it was a blast. So that was kind of my first run in with my future wife, and then kept going to training there like 3 times a week. And
so how long did you end up wrestling for the World Wrestling Association then?
That's roughly, I think it ended up being about 2.5, 3 years, I think.
Okay.
Don't quote me, because...
Did they close down at that time then?
Yes. Okay. Unfortunately, stuff happens, with any business. I'm not going to go into details of my side of the story, but it was kind of rough on the guys paying dues.
Sure.
And then the place just closed out of nowhere. But that's as far as I'm going to go with it.
So then where did you go?
Well, shoot, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
At that time, there were some kids from Peatone that were coming to our shows and watching us, it's like, and they were doing the backyard stuff back at that time.
Oh gosh.
If you ever heard of the backyard wrestling back in the late 90s, it's crazy.
Wasn't that like, it's almost like a fight club kind of thing, right?
Basically like that.
Yeah.
And they were, come to find out, that's where I had known of Nick Huffman before that, because he was at one or two practices that I attended before he, I think, just stopped or whatever. But I didn't know of him. I knew him.
Was he wrestling?
Nick was wrestling, but he was heavily involved with doing the backyard stuff, like the blood and all of that crazy stuff. That was his thing. That was Nick's thing.
When I had Nick on the podcast before he passed away, we never really got deep into the whole wrestling thing. Of course, with Nick, there's so many things to talk about.
Nick was so many facets. Later in life, and just
right. So there was so many things that we talked about, and that was one thing we never got into. And I knew he was a big wrestling fan.
Yeah, he did it,
but I didn't know he wrestled.
He did the stuff that I never did. He just crazy. So these kids, they ended up making the one kid, his dad owned a fab shop in Peatone and made our diamond plated steps for us. It was really cool. So they were doing this stuff when the WWA closed. So, and I had mentioned Brandon Bishop before, really nice guy. I've lost contact with him over the years, which I've tried on and off, getting in touch with him, like so many other guys in the business. Just a different era stuff, life changes and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So these kids asked us, hey, can you guys come up? Because they had a ring and everything, built their own ring. It just
in the backyard.
Ended up in the backyard on the kid's dad's property, because there was a fab shop just outside of Peatone. So they had the room. They ended up renting out a building in Peatone by the train tracks that has a big overhead door, and the rings fit inside there. It was like a room to walk around and stuff. So that's where they ended up moving it. And Brandon Bishop and I went out there and start training, helping these kids legitimately train to, either go on to get booked by other federations, and they end up starting their own company for a short time. That was Primetime Championship Wrestling, Peatone, Illinois.
Okay.
So these kids are so crazy.
And you being
and we were
older,
trying to,
you were a little older.
I was quite a bit older,
and
but
this
not,
is in the mid 2000s at this point, or early 2000s.
So around then.
Yeah.
Not 2001, 2002, because my youngest son was born in 2003.
Okay.
And that's about that time where after we felt that these kids were ready, and back then the stuff was regulated by the state of Illinois.
But what they were doing wasn't being regulated.
No, but to do it legitimately and professionally, you had to have a state licensed referee, medical paramedic on site, and all that stuff, which was a good thing.
So you helped them organize that
to a point, but we helped hone their craft. We helped mold their wrestling technique and stuff. Train them. A lot of them were just quick at learning the stuff.
Sure.
I was quicker than some because I was smarter by my older age, watching the stuff on TV. I'd pick it up.
Yeah.
So yeah, we trained. I can't remember the time frame, but we trained the kids and stuff. We'd have training sessions and stuff, and running around town doing cardio and stuff. And they had their first and only official show at the Peatone Junior High, Primetime Championship Wrestling, and they had a big screen, like a big Titan. They call it the Titantron on TV,
right,
over the stage. And it showed our entrance videos. Back, they had entrance videos that the kids would edit and all this stuff. It was cool, and they had a ramp coming out to the ring and all that.
They had it all.
That's on YouTube somewhere.
Okay,
a channel that has a bunch of indie wrestling federations on it, and it's pretty cool setup. And it ended up being my last match for that time being, because it wouldn't have been. But I think it was, because my wife was pregnant with my youngest son, and I was getting beat up. I had two blown discs in my neck by that time, which I was dealing with.
Was that from your wrestling?
Yeah.
Dang.
for sure. From when I first got in,
Yeah.
my first couple years.
Yeah, because at this point you're in your late 20s, early
Yes.
30s.
My first couple years
Yeah.
initially, that's where probably a lot of it happened.
Okay.
Get on the fast track to get pushed too hard too soon, I think. Like I said, I mean that's only this here in town where I started. If I would have been smarter and knew more people, maybe I would have went up north and trained up north in Chicago. But it was a no-brainer for me right here in town.
Right.
So whatever. Yeah, it was from there. I suffered concussion syndrome, whiplash syndrome, short-term memory loss. And I was working as a pipe fitter at the time too. So during the day, I'm doing a physical, hauling stuff up ladders and stuff. And then at night, I was still working out almost every day after work, training, helping these kids train out there. So I was getting beat down, and I was still young, but it's like, my wife's like, God bless her, Dawn Olson.
Yes, shout out to Dawn.
Caldwell banker extraordinaire.
Yes.
But she's like, you don't want to be a beat up dad. Our two oldest kids are my stepkids, but they've been my kids since they were 5 and 3.
Yeah. Well, she didn't want you paralyzed in a wheelchair.
Exactly. And I didn't want to be either.
Yeah.
So I had to all right, that was it, which was fortunate because sucks for the kids that put on all that time and effort into running that production and that show at that time. Some fans were caught on school grounds in the parking lot drinking alcohol.
Oh boy.
Wasn't from us because it was sell,
Right.
So that was it. And a lot of them ended up getting booked and discovered by other wrestling companies in Chicago and stuff, which was cool.
So they didn't need the prime time,
not necessarily
anymore,
but they still had the training facility, the range facility in there and stuff. So yeah, and a lot of them went on to do really well for a while. Eric Marks was a pocket rocket kid, jumping, fly around. Vito Tomaselli, he came in. He wrestled for years. He got on TV a lot later in his career. It's so hard to remember all these kids' names.
Oh, sure. Well, it's been 20-some years ago.
So Facebook
right?
makes it awesome. Your Facebook memories pop up.
Yeah.
You got pictures of all the kids in the rain and stuff. So yeah, that was it. I stopped. And
then you got your discs fixed, right?
Nope.
No?
At that point, it was manageable, pain wise. I was always sore all the time, anyways. Working
because of your job,
wrestling, working out. So
you're like
just dealing with it, whatever. So yeah, it never occurred to me to ever do it again because that's life. I'm done. Moving on. A new dad. Well, not a new dad, but
you're
dad again.
Right.
Dad
another child.
Yeah. Working. We bought a house. She was just getting into the real estate business back then.
So how did you get back in then?
Yeah, so once in a great while, John, if you remember John Thompson, I mentioned him early on. He still lived in the area, but he worked up in Bolingbrook for a company. He was a maintenance guy. Still running into him every once in a while at the gas stations in the morning and stuff or whatever. Was working out at, I think it was Fitness Premier or Cardinal Fitness at the time. This big guy come in there all the time. Tattoos, bald head, shaved head. And you could tell something different about him. And just word of mouth, even that he wrestles up north for a federation. Lives down here. He moved down here with his wife and family, this and that. So just we never really talked to each other initially, off and on, just like, hey, whatever. And John, whenever he was around. So he got word or found out somehow through the grapevine that I used to wrestle and that this John Thompson was in the area and he used to wrestle too. He had wanted to start his own thing for years and years and years. So he had asked me and John, say, hey, I've been wanting to do this. Would you guys be interested in helping? Like, whatever. Oh boy. At that time I was not, still working and stuff.
You're still working, trying to raise a family.
Still
busy.
And
busy.
Yeah, it's like, my wife, she's like, yeah, at the time I wasn't wrestling. I was helping
Yes.
out
Yeah.
and stuff. And yeah, so between the three of us putting our heads together and what little money I had, um, extra to help out and stuff, we branched off from it was CSW, the Chicago Championship Wrestling. And so we were the Southland branch, Southland, I can't remember.
Like the name it is today.
Yeah.
You still kind of kept the Southland.
Yeah, we changed. We got the
name.
Chicago style wrestling out and changed it just to Southland because we branched. We actually Hunter, the main guy that runs it now, and still did in the beginning. He LLC'd and all that stuff. So all the organization and stuff. So yeah, we started it. At that time, Facebook was still kind of young. So I made the Facebook page and all that stuff because my wife was showing me a bunch of different stuff. She's real a techie.
Sure.
Like
about what time was
this?
Was
is
this?
2013, I believe.
Okay. 10 years ago.
It'll be 11 in September, I think. I can't remember exactly. It was around that time. So we started and we initially had our first shows at Hidden Cove.
Okay.
Back behind the mall.
Yeah.
If you're familiar,
you're familiar. Commons.
Yeah. Familiar with that building where they used to have the bouncy houses upstairs above the indoor soccer. That's where we would have our events. We'd have to set up the chairs and the ring, bring the ring up there in pieces, put it together.
Oh, man.
I can't remember how many trips it would. And we have to tear it all down and clean up afterwards. That's a long day.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because at that point it was called Legends at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the building was much bigger because they had made that big addition onto it. So yeah, it was huge.
So it
still is huge.
Yes. So it was. We did shows there for I can't remember how many years. At least 2. And if you remember, the management kept changing every so often. And then the last time they changed, it was the investment group was taken over. And I can't remember our exact deal we had. As far as we'd sell tickets. That was how we made money or broke even.
Yep.
You're not doing this to make money. Most of the time, if you can, that's awesome.
It's more or less just something you enjoy.
They wanted the previous people were, we got to use that area for free, and they would sell concessions, and that alcohol. Sometimes they served alcohol, and that was their whatever. They wanted a percentage of our ticket sales. They wanted to charge us for using the chairs. Say, we can't afford this. So
plus all the work it took.
Oh yeah. So we can't afford that. So we started shopping around for somewhere else, and that's at the time when it still is, the Chebanse Civic Center popped up. As far as what you get charged to use the building, you have all day. So that was our new home. So yeah, it was more convenient. I think the access. Chairs and everything, tables, bathrooms, a kitchen that we run our concessions out of and stuff. And it ended up working out really well for us, and it still is. We've had shows at other places within the past couple years, but that's our home, and it's been a blessing.
And this has all been Southland Championship Wrestling.
From then on, so we LLC'd. Hunter LLC and branched off from the Chicago Style Wrestling LLC, so it's his own entity.
But during this time, though, you're not wrestling.
No,
right?
I'm just managing.
You're just managing.
I was a manager,
and it was a big thing because you did not have those discs,
and I wasn't in
right?
any pain. I was just dealing with normal, everyday aches and pains at that time.
So when did you get back in the ring, and how did that happen? Did you get your discs fixed, and then
I had to get them fixed? Yeah. I recovered fairly quickly because I was kind of proactive about stuff I was doing beforehand.
Sure.
I was, helping build up my upper back, my delts, and my neck muscles to compensate for it afterwards, which might have helped, but that physical therapy afterwards was the worst not worse, but it was good pain. They kicked my butt, and I'm glad they did. And I was back walking around in the gym and stuff on the treadmill with my neck brace on. Erik Olson's in the gym a week after dual neck fusion. So, yeah, and a lot of good people around me that watched out for me. Mike Newman was one of them.
Yes, great guy.
Yeah, he was a good friend. He still is.
So how did you get back into wrestling then after you get healed and everything?
SCW, or we were Chicago-style wrestling at the time. I was already managing the stuff when all that happened with my neck. Okay, the business was already going. So I was like, oh, man, I'm good. I was so worried about something happening to me that I wasn't going to wake up. So none of that happened, thank God. So I started feeling good, better. I was able to start going back to work. I started going to the shows again. I missed a couple shows.
Sure.
Whoop-de-doo. So I'm going to these shows, watching guys wrestle.
Starting to think about it again.
The wheels are turning.
Yeah.
And as a bad guy manager with the two guys, the Asylum, Braun the Lumberjack, and John Thompson the Lunatic, I'm the bad guy manager. He's got to get his butt kicked sometimes by the good guy, stuff. So there's little things here and there I would do that I knew physically I could do without hurting myself, like getting popped a punch or something like that. No big deal. And it progressed a little bit here and there, and it progressed a little bit. And as there again, I had to sit down with my wife and talk to her and express to her how much I wanted to do it again, and she is really hesitant about it, obviously, and I would have been too if but it's that switch in your head is just, I get goosebumps thinking about it, because if she would have said no, I would have been deal with it, and I wouldn't, what I mean. So yeah, there's stuff I started doing it again, being a little more really, really cautious on who I was with or what I was doing. So yeah, it turned into the doing more stuff as that guy, the keeper, Erik Edwards, was the Asylum's keeper, the two lunatics, crazy people from the Asylum.
So your name was Erik the Keeper?
Erik Edwards, the keeper, Erik Edwards.
Okay.
And I wore nurse scrubs from the Asylum because I was their orderly type person. I was their orderly.
That's great.
Orderly from the Asylum, which kind of funny. It kind of ties in with, because where John first started wrestling, the Lunatic was at the Diversitech.
I was just gonna say, it goes back
the Asylum,
to,
whatever. So yeah, he was originating from the Black Hills Asylum, whatever. I can't remember if that's a made up asylum or not, but that's where he was from. I can't
remember either, but still, that works. That's great.
It just clicked. Stuff just rolls together. So I was a big fan of still watched a lot of wrestling. I don't watch as much anymore, but I was still, my younger kids were into, what they watched, liked watching it too. My youngest son and my son, they liked watching it with me and stuff. And, we went to a couple live events, big events. And so they were into it too. So it was something that I could watch with them and tell them what's going on and stuff. And all that.
Yeah, because you knew.
So Daniel Brian, his real name is Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryanson. He's a local. He was in the Chicago area, traveled around in Indies for years. Him, and at the time on TV, he was partnered up with Kane, the Undertaker's brother.
Okay, I remember Kane.
Big guy. And they're tag team champions at the time. And obviously, a lot of celebrities do Make-A-Wishes and stuff like that. Yeah. Wrestlers. John Cena has the all-time granted wishes ever. And just stuff like that. So I'm watching. There's a story on, I think it was just the regular news, about this boy named Connor wanting to meet Daniel Bryan and Kane for a Make-A-Wish thing. So I'm watching this, and I'm like, wow, that's so cool. It's just, pulling at your emotions and heartstrings and stuff. I'm probably too emotional sometimes.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay. It means
so
you're
I'm
human.
watching this, and at that same time, I don't remember the numbers, but there was some kids in the area, unfortunately, that were suffering from cancer. And one of them, Zayla Mitstoffer, I went to school with her parents from the Limestone Hersher area. And there was another boy, Austin Barnett,
Yes, I
from
am
the same area, about the
Austin.
same area, childhood cancer. And, there's two, that's another whole subject. But anyways,
Yeah.
so I'm watching this, and we had raised some money at one of our events at Hidden Cove for Zayla's traveling expenses. Whatever, and I can't remember how much we got donated, whatever. It's never the amount, it's the thought and the awareness.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I'm watching this. I'm like, man, it's something I want to do like that. And I was wanting to start wrestling already. I was like, what am I going to do? I can't come out there and be a wrestler. I'm already this manager, the keeper. So I was, put a mask on. So what kind of mask? Some generic, whatever. Try to be original as you can sometimes with some things. But I always was into the Bane character from Batman. Because he was a wrestler, a
Yes.
Hispanic, Mexican wrestler, some of the different storylines,
Right.
that wanted to kill Batman. And so
naturally, of
that
course,
mask
he
is
would be
awesome.
your favorite.
That mask is awesome. He's like,
Oh, dude,
big,
yeah, scary.
Man, what can I do to make it not so scary and be a good guy and be? So my first initial mask I ordered the first one was an actual Bane mask with the felt over the eyes. It was hard to see out of and hard to breathe because it didn't have an open mouth. First time I wrestled in that, I was not the BaneX character, like the childhood cancer advocate character yet, but I just wanted to try to see it. It was fun. It worked out. So I got to change this mask because I can't breathe.
Yeah.
And then, so I seen that Make-A-Wish thing with Connor the Crusher was the boy's name. And I was like, I got to change this. I only use it, give it a purpose. And so I changed the color scheme to black and gold, which come to fight, is my Hersher Tigers high school color too, which is cool. Zayla and the boy and some of the kids are from the Hersher School District. It all kind of tied in with the yellow and the gold and stuff. So yeah, I changed, and I started going by that, being announced as BaneX, and then childhood cancer advocate was my purpose.
So you've been doing BaneX and then another character though during this time as well, and you're going to be retiring both of those at a upcoming match
next
here.
Saturday, July 22nd, and it's at Chebanse.
Right. And by the time this is posted, it'll have happened.
It would have happened. I'll be on my merry way into the sunset.
Yeah. And then that's where this Viking.
More of my Viking heritage, Norwegian, my dad's side, from Minnesota. A lot of cousins over there. I can't remember the exact names of the regions from Norway that go back in ancestry and stuff and all that. So yeah, I was like, yeah, that fits me pretty good. And there's once in a while I'll see somebody on TV doing something similar, but I didn't want to be somebody the same as somebody else on TV. Like right now, there's some guys on the WWE. They're Viking wrestlers. They're called the Raiders.
Okay.
The Viking Raiders, and they got the big beards and the big fur. It's like, So, I just, I'm really into the Thor stuff and with the Marvel movies these past how many years already, and just trying to try something a little different and more of like my amped up personality. And that's when I'm in the gym or something like that, I'm in the right frame of mind and stuff. I like walking around and not making a spectacle of myself, but So yeah, it's fun. It's more of a release.
Is it Odinson the Bezerker?
Odinson the Berserker.
Odinson the Berserker is the Viking. Norwegian
yeah,
character.
Odinson, Odin. There's a lot of last names from Odinson's last names. We named our newer dog that we got about a year ago Odin.
Yes,
because he's a husky, but American Bully mix. He's got one blue eye and one brown. Odin, the god of the Viking lore, is the one eye, all-seeing god.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where
perfect.
My son actually, that was named Odin. So we had some other names in the hat that that ended up winning. I was like, yeah. So that was cool. And it's so much easier and freer acting for me. Not acting, but I guess, you're putting on a show.
Oh, right.
I can come out and scream and yell and bark and whatever, act like a goof, like a berserker, which if you're familiar with the Viking stuff or whatever, berserkers were like their front line, who they would send in first.
Okay. I did not know that.
They're crazy.
Yeah.
Berserker. They feel no pain. They're invincible.
So that fits perfectly with
kind of sort
wrestling.
Kind of sort of, yeah. They would. I've read so much stuff over. They would take some kind of drugs, whatever, and get all
amp them up,
amped up.
I see, to make them go crazy. They
send them in to go nuts.
That's a tactic right there, man. That's
yeah. So like when I take pre-workout to go to the gym, I'm taking, a lot of people, whatever. It's like, I'm going to get that feeling, hopefully.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's how that come about, and it's fun. I think the kids dig it too.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
They like barking. I'll come out and bark not like a dog, but give out the war cries and stuff. Stomp my feet, whatever. Bite. I bite guys, Not really biting them.
No, it's your fake biting.
I'm a berserker, but I bite them in the face,
Man.
Just something that emulates from. There's been some older wrestlers back in the years ago that were kind of similar, that did kind of the crazy stuff like that, like George the Animal Steel. The Berserker was one of them. He was a big guy in the late 80s, early 90s in the WWF. That had the furry boots, and the horns and stuff, and he walked around like he was like nuts and stuff. So it's fun. It's just something to have fun and get a crowd reaction.
Right.
If nobody's laughing or cheering or booing you, then you're doing something wrong.
Erik, I know there's so many things we could keep talking about.
Yes.
This could go on forever, which is a good thing. But also I know we need to close this out too.
For sure.
So for you, I mean, you're still going to be behind the scenes with
I will
Southland.
be. I will be. But if it's going to be, I want to be, behind the scenes, social media, helping make these posters, pushing kids, helping get the word out, helping Hunter, Jeff, whatever I can do. Yeah, I'm going to be involved, but am I going to show up at the shows? Maybe not for a little bit. Just depends. I'll help out as much as I can with advertising and stuff and all that. But I'm afraid coming to the shows, it's going to make me miss it more. I don't think it will, because I think I'm ready this time. I'm ready because I kind of retired before, but just like because it didn't felt right when I had my last match the last time. It didn't feel right, but this feels right.
Yeah.
And it feels right. And so many other guys in the past, I'm retired, and then you see them again. This is it.
Where can people get information on Southland Championship Wrestling if they choose?
Southland Championship Wrestling. We have a Facebook page, just like it says.
Is there a website?
There's not an actual website. It's all Facebook based.
Okay.
You can look up any of our wrestlers and stuff that are on the site. There's so many of them. James Creed, he's a big up-and-comer trainee. JPH, Apex, the kid I just wrestled last month for his first match. He's on there. They have, some of them have their own fan pages, some of them don't. We have a YouTube channel, Southland Championship Wrestling, that all of our matches go on. There's commentary, just like on TV. You can watch on WWE or AEW. We have matches set up like that. So it's cool to be able to go in there and see stuff from years ago and current stuff. It's the progression of some of the guys.
Well, Erik, thank you for coming on Kankakee Podcast
Finally.
and yes, finally, and thank you for your patience on that, and congratulations on a one heck of a wrestling career.
Always thinking, wish it could have been more, but I think
it sounds like you fit quite a bit in.
And as far as my career, you always wish for bigger and better things, but I wasn't, with my situation, with my early on injuries, meeting my wife for the past 23 years.
I think you did pretty well.
I think so, and I have no regrets. Some people, they retire. Oh, I regret this, and I wish I would have done this. No, I don't think so. I got out of it probably in more than I thought I ever would. Just that second chance I've had these past 10 almost years with Southland Championship Wrestling and stuff. I was able to get it out of my system, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Erik.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate it.